Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're looking at, well, a really foundational text, the Book of Job from the King James Bible.
It's ancient, yeah, but it tackles these questions that are just timeless, wouldn't you say, about suffering, justice.
Definitely. And for this deep dive, we're going to zoom in on those first couple of chapters, sort of the setup, right?
Exactly. The dramatic opening, how Job's story kicks off, the scale of the disaster, and how he initially reacts. It really sets the stage.
So our mission, if you will, is to unpack that initial catastrophe. What happens, what questions it immediately throws up, and Job's first responses, because that really frames everything that follows.
It absolutely does.
Okay, so before everything goes wrong, who is this guy, Job? What's his deal?
Well, the text paints a pretty clear picture right from the start. He's from Uz, and it says he was perfect and upright.
Perfect. That's a strong word.
It is, and it adds one that feared God and eschewed evil. So not just outwardly conforming, but like deeply moral.
Okay, so a genuinely good person by the standards of the text.
Right. And this is important because it immediately challenges the idea that his suffering later is some kind of obvious punishment for sin.
Makes sense. And it wasn't just his character, right? He was well off.
Oh, incredibly so.
Yeah.
The Bible lists it all out. 7,000 sheep,
Wow.
3,000 camels, 500 pairs of oxen, 500 female donkeys, and it mentions a very great household.
So basically loaded.
Yeah, it sums it up.
Yep.
The greatest of all the men of the East.
Yep.
That's serious status, huge wealth, huge influence.
And that level of detail, it really underlines how much he stood to lose, doesn't it?
It really does. It makes the fall that much more dramatic. And it also makes you think, well, was prosperity seen as a direct sign of God's favor back then?
That's a good question. And beyond the material side, he had a family, right?
10 children, and they seem to have these regular feasts together. Job, though, he worried about them.
Worried how?
Well, he worried they might have sinned during their parties, specifically cursed God in their hearts.
Huh. So he wasn't just enjoying his wealth, he was actively managing the spiritual side, too.
Very actively. After these feasts, he'd get up early, sanctify them, and offer burnt offerings, one for each child.
Every time.
The text says, thus did Job continually. It was part of his regular devotion, like a proactive spiritual covering for his family.
That really speaks volumes about his piety. It wasn't just passive belief.
Not at all. Deep commitment to God, deep concern for his family. This whole picture, righteous, wealthy, devout family man, it sets up this incredibly stark contrast with what happens next.
Yeah, because the scene shifts dramatically, doesn't it? We go from Earth to somewhere else.
To the heavenly court, essentially. The sons of God are presenting themselves before the Lord. Angelic beings, maybe?
Could be, and Satan is there too, just
Right.
shows up with them.
Right. And it's actually the Lord who brings up Job. He points him out to Satan.
Like, have you seen my servant Job?
Exactly. He repeats that description. Perfect and upright, fears God, avoids evil,
Yeah.
holding him up as the prime example of faith.
But Satan, he's not buying it, is he?
Not for a second. He comes back with that really cynical question. Doth Job fear God for naught?
Meaning, does he do it for free or because he gets something out of it?
Precisely. Satan argues Job's only pious because God has blessed him so much and protected him. He says, hast not thou made an hedge about him?
A hedge, like a protective barrier.
Yeah, around him, his house, everything he owns. God's blessed his work, his wealth has exploded. Satan's basically saying it's a transaction.
Take away the good stuff and his faith will disappear.
That's the challenge. Put forth thine hand now, and touch all that he hath, and he will curse thee to thy face.
Wow. Bold claim. And the Lord agrees to the test.
He does. He gives Satan permission. Behold, all that he hath is in thy power.
But with a condition.
Only upon himself put not forth thine hand.
So attack his possessions, his family indirectly, but don't harm Job himself. Not yet.
Okay, so the first test is about material loss, external loss. Can his faith survive that?
That seems to be the question. Is his piety tied only to blessings? And the test begins almost immediately. Back on Earth, Job's kids are having one of their feasts.
Completely unaware. And then the messengers start arriving, one after another. It's brutal.
Just relentless. What's the first wave?
First messenger. Sabaean raiders took the oxen and the donkeys, killed the servants. Only one guy escaped to tell Job.
Okay, hit number 1. Major loss to his farming operation.
And before he's even done speaking, messenger number 2 arrives.
Was
The fire of God lightning probably fell from the sky, burned at all the sheep and the servants with them. Again, one survivor.
fire from heaven, that sounds ominous. divine almost.
It would certainly be interpreted that way. So now his flocks are gone too.
Still reeling from that, and then?
Messenger number 3. While he's still talking, Chaldean raiders this time came in 3 groups, stole all the camels, killed more servants, one survivor again.
So oxen, donkeys, sheep, camels, his entire livestock wealth essentially wiped out in minutes, plus many servants killed.
Systematically destroyed. Different agents, human raiders, natural disaster, but the effect is total.
You can just feel the hammer blows landing. But the worst is yet to come, isn't it?
Oh yes, the 4th messenger. While the 3rd is still speaking.
Unbelievable
He
timing.
reports that while all 10 children were feasting at the oldest brother's house, a great wind came out of the wilderness.
A tornado. A massive storm.
Something powerful. It hit the house, all 4 corners, and it collapsed.
Oh, no.
Killed everyone inside, all his sons, all his daughters. Again, I only am escaped alone to tell thee.
All 10 children in one go. That's unimaginable.
It's the ultimate blow. Wealth can be rebuilt, perhaps, but losing all your children at once, it's complete devastation. The speed, the totality.
It's designed to be overwhelming, isn't it? To break him.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So how does he react? This man who's lost everything in, what, maybe an hour?
This is the crucial part. Does he curse God like Satan predicted?
He gets up, tears his robe, shaves his head. Traditional signs of intense grief. Understandable. But then he falls to the ground and worships.
Worships. After all that.
Worships. It's staggering. Instead of anger or accusation, his first instinct after processing the grief is worship.
That's not what you'd expect.
Not at all. And then he speaks those famous words.
Ah, yes. Naked came I out of my mother's womb.
And naked shall I return thither. The Lord gave, and the Lord has taken away. Blessed be the name of the Lord.
Wow. Just acceptance. Acknowledging God's sovereignty over everything, even in the midst of this horror. Blessing God's name.
It's an extraordinary display of faith, recognizing everything is ultimately from God, both the giving and the taking. It directly refutes Satan's prediction, at least for now.
And the chapter ends with that critical summary from the narrator, right?
Yes. In all this Job sinned not, nor charged God foolishly.
So despite the unimaginable loss, he kept his integrity. He didn't blame God unfairly. Round 1, you could say, goes to Job.
You could. It sets up this huge question. If such a righteous man suffers so much, what's going on? Is there justice? But the story isn't over.
No, round 2 is coming. Back to the heavenly scene.
Back to the heavenly scene. Sons of God, the Lord, Satan's there again.
And the Lord brings Job up again. Sort of an I told you so.
Pretty much. Have you considered my servant Job? Still holding fast his integrity, even though you moved me against him, to destroy him without cause.
Without cause. That phrase again. God acknowledges there wasn't a reason in Job's behavior for this.
Right, but Satan's not giving up. He's got another theory.
Oh, what now?
He basically says, okay, sure, he can handle losing stuff, even his kids, but that wasn't him being hurt. He says, skin for skin, yea, all that a man hath will he give for his life.
Skin for skin, meaning?
It likely means people will give up anything, even the skin of their loved ones, to save their own skin. Self-preservation is paramount.
So Satan's saying the real test is physical pain.
Exactly. But put forth thine hand now, and touch his bone and his flesh, and he will curse thee to thy face. Now he's certain physical agony will break Job.
It's getting much more personal, much more visceral. And the Lord permits this too.
Permits it, yes. Behold, he is in thine hand. But again with a limit.
What's the limit this time?
But save his life. Afflict his body, make him suffer physically, but don't kill him.
Interesting. So he has to endure the suffering. He can't escape through death. Why that limit, do you think?
Maybe to see if faith endures even when life itself becomes almost unbearable torture. If integrity holds even without the ultimate release. It's debatable.
So Satan goes for it.
He does.
Yeah.
He strikes Job with sore boils, and the description is horrific. From the sole of his foot unto his crown.
Head to toe, just covered in these things. Must have been agony.
Unimaginable itching, pain, inflammation, total physical misery.
And what does Job do now? How does he cope with this?
The image is just devastating. He takes a piece of broken pottery, a potsherd, to scrape himself.
Scraping his sores with broken pottery? Ugh.
Trying to get some relief, maybe. And he sits down among the ashes, a sign of mourning, but also perhaps the lowest point socially. Utter degradation.
From the greatest man in the East to sitting in ashes, scraping his boils, the contrast is brutal.
It really is. Physically tormented, socially outcast. And the question just hangs there. Why? Why him?
And just when you think it can't get worse, his wife speaks.
Yes. She sees him in this state, and her reaction is, well, understandable perhaps, but harsh.
What does she say?
Dost thou still retain thine integrity? Curse God and die.
Wow. Basically, give up. What's the point of being good if this is the result? Just curse God and get it over with.
It's a cry of utter despair, seeing his suffering. Maybe she thinks death is the only mercy left, but it's also a direct challenge to his faith, echoing Satan's prediction.
How does Job respond to his own wife telling him this?
He remains steadfast. He rebukes her gently, saying, Thou speakest as one of the foolish women speaketh,
He calls her foolish.
in the sense of lacking wisdom or understanding, perhaps. Then he asks that profound question, What? Shall we receive good at the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil?
So, again, acknowledging God's sovereignty over all of life's experiences, the good and the bad, still refusing to blame God.
Exactly. Remarkable resilience. And the narrator adds another crucial line here.
What's that?
In all this did not Job sin with his lips, even in response to his wife, even in this agony. He doesn't curse God or speak wrongly.
He's holding on. It's incredible. But he must feel utterly alone.
Well, perhaps not entirely, because the story then introduces his friends.
Ah, the famous friends, Eliphaz, Bildad, and Zophar.
That's them. They hear about everything that's happened to Job, this evil that befell him, and they arrange to meet up and go see him,
To comfort him.
to mourn with him and to comfort him. That was the intention. They came from their different places, united in concern for their friend.
That sounds like a good thing, some support arriving.
Initially, yes, but their first reaction when they see him tells you just how bad things are.
How so?
When they see him from a distance, they don't even recognize him.
He's that physically changed by the suffering.
Apparently. His appearance is so shocking, so ravaged, they don't know it's him at first.
Good grief, what do they do then? They just break down. They cry out loud, weep, tear their robes, throw dust on their heads towards the sky, all the traditional intense signs of mourning.
A powerful, shared grief response.
Very. And then they do something quite remarkable.
Which is?
They just sit down with him on the ground. In the ashes, presumably. For 7 days and 7 nights.
A whole week.
A whole week. And the text says, None spake a word unto him, for they saw that his grief was very great.
Silent sympathy. That's profound, acknowledging that sometimes words are just inadequate.
Exactly. It's a powerful image of solidarity and suffering before the debates began, recognizing the sheer depth of his pain.
Okay, so let's quickly recap where these first 2 chapters leave us. We have Job, this incredibly righteous and prosperous man.
Suddenly hit by wave after wave of disaster, loses his wealth, all his children, and then his health, covered in boils, sitting in ashes.
And this is all framed by this cosmic wager between God and Satan about whether Job's faith is genuine or just transactional.
Right. And so far, despite everything, including his wife telling him to give up,
Job has held firm. He's grieved, yes, but he hasn't sinned or blamed God foolishly. He's maintained his integrity.
which just deepens the central mystery, doesn't it? Why is this happening? Why does a good person suffer like this? It throws questions of faith, justice, the nature of suffering right in your face.
Absolutely. What is real faith? How does it hold up under extreme pressure? What's God's role in all this apparent randomness and pain?
In these opening chapters, they don't give answers. They just set the stage, lay out the terrible facts, and pose the excruciating questions. The arrival of the silent friends signals that the conversation, the attempts to make sense of it all, is about to begin.
It really forces you to think, if you were in Job's place, faced with losses on that scale, physical agony, what would your response be? How does faith, or even just humanity, endure that?
It's deeply unsettling, and these initial chapters really grab you and make you confront those uncomfortable possibilities, preparing you for the intense dialogues to come.
A powerful start to a profound book. Thanks for digging into this opening act with us.